Hi everyone. This video continues our discussion of argumentative compositions. In the first video we talked about what an argument was, and we talked about how to develop a debatable thesis statement, which remember is a thesis statement that is arguable, that there are sides, yes or no, for or against. So once you've developed a debatable thesis statement, the next step is to develop your line of reasoning. And simply put, a line of reasoning is why you're arguing the thing that you're arguing. Okay, what are your reasons for making whatever assertion you made in your debatable thesis statement? Now, it's not just one thing. All right, it can't just be one reason, because remember, we're trying to convince our readers to agree with us. And if we've forwarded a debatable thesis statement, we want to give our audience lots of different reasons to agree so that they have just an overabundance of information that, again, like we talked about in the last video, we've presented so logically that they can't help but agree with us. So as you're planning for this essay and as you're pre-writing this essay, you want to think about several distinct, different, separate reasons why you're arguing whatever it is you're arguing. And each paragraph in your argumentative composition should support one point in your line of reasoning. So in your introduction paragraph, you've introduced the topic, you've had your debatable thesis statement. Paragraph 1 is going to be the first reason why you've said what you've said. The next paragraph will be the second reason why you've said what you've said. And then the third reason why you've said what you've said. Okay? You also need to be sure to include evidence, because a claim or a debatable thesis or an assertion is only as strong as the evidence that supports it. To that end, a huge focus of your paper is going to be providing support for your claims. I have a teenager, and anytime he questions my authority and says, well, why? I always say, well, I try not to, but sometimes I say, because I said so. And I'm a mom, so I can do that with my children. But as a writer, presenting an argument to a reader, we can't present an argument to them and make an assertion and then just say, because I said so. All right, we're not the authority. So we have to present lots and lots of evidence that support our claim. The first way that we could do this is through observations and anecdotes. And an anecdote is like a story. Now, you want to be careful here because we want to provide our reader with observations and anecdotes that are generally accepted and acceptable as truth. All right? We have to avoid first or second person. So we can't say, one time when I was in the third grade, to present this anecdote to our audience, because that makes it too personal. And we talked about that last time in the last video, about how we don't want it to be too personal, because then we come across as maybe a little bit too invested and a little illogical sometimes. So we have to avoid first and second person observations and anecdotes. We can't say, I once saw in the grocery store. We have to remove ourselves from the papers so that it's a little bit more objective. This provides an eyewitness perspective, and again, it has to be generally accepted to be true, okay? And it cannot use first or second person. Then we have statistics, and for me, the statistics are what really, really bolster an argument, okay? Statistics are concrete numbers about a topic, and when you present statistics to your audience, number one, you have to be sure that you have a source for those statistics. You can't make them up, obviously. That would make you untrustworthy. And we talked about how we want to appeal to our readers, right? We want to be ethos. We want to be ethical. We want to be trustworthy. And so you have to provide your readers with concrete evidence and a source to back these numbers up, okay? You also, if you present statistics, you have to be, they need to be interpreted. You can't just say 1 out of 10 teenagers has texted while they drove. Even if you cite the source, you have to be sure as the writer to interpret that, to tell your audience what that means and how that's related to your thesis. You want to be sure that the numbers that you give your readers, these statistics, are not slanted or taken out of context, and they need to be up to date. They need to be relevant. Tests and experiments and studies and things like that, these again provide hard data. And as nursing majors, some of you are nursing majors, this provides really, really good data developed through the scientific method. Those of you who are scientists will appreciate this. But again, it has to be properly interpreted and properly credited. And for the most part, you're probably not going to be running these tests and experiments by themselves. So you need to, if you find a study that you need to cite, you need to be sure that you give that credit where credit is due. I've had so many students over the years that have said, studies show that teenagers text and drive. What studies show that? You have to be able to point your reader to where you found that information. Graphics can also be really important. They provide visual representation of data and visual representation of what you're trying to argue, and they can be helpful. They have to accurately represent the truth, and they have to be cited as well if you got them someplace else. And if you got the data someplace and you created the chart yourself, you still have to cite where you got that data. Analogies, compare two things, creating clarity by drawing parallels. That's a good type of support. Expert testimony is really good. It offers insights from an authority on the topic. And a lot of what you're going to be finding in your research is expert testimony in those journal articles, particularly those journal articles. And this is why it's so important that we look for peer-reviewed articles, is because that makes them an expert, and we can cite them and we can refer to their work and trust that it's accurate. You can also use illustrations, examples, demonstrations. Really specific instances will help to support your argument, because again, remember, what you're doing is you have made an assertion and you're using evidence to support your line of reasoning, okay? And just another thing to keep in mind as you're doing this is you want to be absolutely sure that you are constantly reminding your reader of what your thesis is, what you're trying to prove. You don't want them to ever forget what it is you're writing about or what point you're trying to make. So always be sure to refer them back to the thesis. Analysis is important as well. Examines parts of a topic through patterns like cause and effect, compare and contrast, classification, process, definition. Some of these look very familiar to some of you because we've already done some of these things. And especially if the topic is really, really complex, analogies and analysis really help to clarify it for a reader. And what you want to do is a couple of things. You want to assume that your reader doesn't know a lot about the topic. You want to make it very clear for them, and to that end, you want to avoid any kind of technical jargon or words that they may not understand. Either avoid or define them. And again, you're trying to make this as clear as possible, like links in a chain. All right, it's all connected together. You can also, especially in your closing paragraph, maybe offer a prediction, insights into possible outcomes or consequences. You can forecast what might happen under certain conditions. If factory farming continues, this might happen, okay? Now, when you use evidence, you want to be sure that you're going for quality, not just quantity. It needs to be good evidence. It should be accurate because, again, we're trying to build a trust relationship with our reader. That's ethos, That's ethics. We don't want to be inaccurate. We don't want to present inaccurate information. It needs to be complete. It needs to be concrete, relevant, current, authoritative, and appealing. All right. So as you are looking through the library databases, you're looking for information to support your claim. These are the things that you want to look for. Is it accurate? Is it relevant? Is it authoritative? Is the person who wrote this article an authority on the topic? Okay. And is it current? I hope this has helped you a little bit in regards to developing your line of reasoning and supporting that line of reasoning with evidence. In the next video, I'm going to talk about constructing a counter-argument and rebuttal, engaging the opposition. I said in the first video, an argumentative composition has a lot of moving parts. There's lots of different things we have to consider. If you have any questions as you work, please be sure to let me know. I am super happy to help. Thanks for watching.